Welcome back to another episode of the Brew and Ink podcast.
All right, well, welcome to Brew and Ink. This is season 4.
Oh yes, season 4.
We have made it to 4 seasons, my friend.
I know. It's been a long journey so far.
It has been a long journey.
We've been to Alabama. We've been on a cruise. We've been all over the place.
We've been all over the place on these seasons. And it's going to be a little bare bones tonight. A boneyard, not trying to give any...
Little throwback there.
But it's going to be a little bare bones tonight. It's between holidays and the end of school and other stuff going on. It's just going to be Steven and I tonight.
Yeah, some one-on-one time.
The OG.
Oh yeah. We thought maybe we'd put it on stereo mode and then just do some like ASMR with you guys. Just kidding. We won't go there. Maybe.
No, we won't go there. But tonight, before we get into Steven's reading,
episode 1 of season 4.
Episode 1 of season 4, we're gonna do some flash fiction. At least probably 3 or 4 episodes, I think. And what was the title that won?
The title that won was "The House Always Wins."
Oh yeah, that's a good title.
Yeah, and especially for my character, it tied in really well.
Yeah, it tied in very well. So before we get to that, the topic we thought we'd discuss tonight is sequels, just in general. Now, some of you may have heard there's a movie that came out recently.
Yes.
Called Endgame. I don't know if you've heard of this. Avengers Endgame.
It was a pretty big movie. I
think it's made a couple dollars,
yeah,
I think.
Some people went and saw it.
Some people went and saw it last weekend. So I was just kind of thinking about sequels in general, because whenever a movie or a book is popular, and I'm dealing with this when I'm dealing with publishers. I was talking about another project that I'm going to get published soon, and my agent was like, have you talked to him about all the other books that you can do?
Yeah.
Along with that, like kind of after that. And I'm like, man, I'm so busy this year. I think I just got one in me this year. But
I think it goes to say, whenever we have a good story, the first question that everyone wants to know is, what's the follow-up? What's next?
What happens next?
Yeah, like a good... And to jump into the topic, right, not too soon, but Stranger Things was actually meant just to be a standalone. They were going to do one season with these kids, and it was going to be a story that was strange in this overall arching universe of strangeness. But because people liked the characters so much and they liked the setting, the fans actually swayed them to make more of a sequel for these characters when they did Stranger Things season 2 and now they're in season 3 with same characters. So it is innate in us to go, well, what's more? What's next? We want more of this same idea.
Right. Well, there's 2 forces driving that, right? There's the writer, who any writer will tell you, creator will tell you they've got more stories, right, or they could do more with that character 99 times out of 100. Right?
Yep.
But then you also have the industry, who, well, if the first one made $1 billion,
right,
the second one will make at least 500 million or whatever. I mean, they're thinking dollar signs, like we got to milk this for all it's worth. So there's that tension, right, between the industry wanting more and the writer being willing to kind of explore these characters a little bit.
Yeah, eventually you have to do The Last Land Before Time. You can't just keep going decades and or can you? I guess you can. They've been doing it.
Somebody must be making money off of those, because there's only been about 1 billion of those. Speaking of billions. So with Endgame coming out, I just thought, man, what are some good stories about sequels, or some good examples of when we do a sequel well? Because so often the reason why the first movie does so well is there was a great story and a great character arc, and there was like that universal overcoming obstacles, whatever, character arc where the character changes.
Yes.
Usually from regular everyday person,
right,
to hero.
The hero journey.
The hero journey, right? Well, they can't go through that again.
Right. Well, finish what you're saying, and then I'll refute it.
So, or it's hard to do that again. That's hard to go through that arc again and make it interesting and impactful and take the character to new places.
Which is why I didn't really like Iron Man 3, because that's what I felt like was happening. They set him up so well in Iron Man 1, hero's journey. Iron Man 2, he's Iron Man. He's out in the public, and of course he runs into trouble. Iron Man 3, they basically stripped him of all his Iron Man-ness, and he's going through this whole process of struggling with what it means to be this. He's having PTSD, he's having all these issues, and he's never really fully Iron Man in the movie until the very end, and when he just whips everything out and then destroys them all. And I'm just kind of like, well, so much for any kind of, story arc or I didn't feel like it did anything for me, for the character and all in that series. But probably my least watched Marvel film.
Yeah, the only reason I've watched Iron Man 3 again is because my kids really wanted to watch it, right?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, we haven't seen this one. It was on TV and we watched it. And I think the reason why Iron Man 3 and I think Iron Man 2 fell short is that I think they tried to do a little too much. They tried to make it a little too emotional almost.
Yeah. And they did some screwy things with the villain in 3. Mm-hmm. That anyone that was kind of a fan of the comics felt it was cheap.
They were robbed. They got robbed. I did.
Right.
I was like, what do you mean that's not the Mandarin and the whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a kind of contrast, I think Iron Man, Tony Stark's journey through the Avengers movies, and Civil War, and the Spider-Man Homecoming, his journey through those movies, has a lot of emotional depth, and very redemptive. And so I think they could do a good job, obviously, But I just, for some reason, in Iron Man 2 and 3, especially, I agree with 3. The villain thing was cheap. I think that they wanted to do something kind of different with the anxiety and PTSD, and they wanted to do that thing.
And they set up Pepper Potts to have extraordinary powers, and then she never uses them ever again.
Right.
I think they maybe made a one-off comment in one of the future films, oh yeah, I did this and this and took care of that. But
yeah. So what are some examples that you think of a good sequel? I mean, I know of a couple in my brain that I'm like, oh my gosh, a great, these were maybe even better than the first. But what are some books or movies?
Yeah. So for me, I really did like Ender's Game. I tore through those books in college, and obviously there's a couple different ways you can read them now because there's so many volume sets. But the way that he wrote them and the way they came out, the first book and then the second book, Speaker for the Dead, was a completely different story arc and setting, and it gave another journey for Ender to go through within his life after what he had done as a child. And I think that was a successful way to expand that universe and bring more interest to, what other kind of problems are going on in this world, and even having to deal with the fact that he's traveling through space, and so because of that, he's basically losing all his friends and family and things like that, and having to try and connect with them and stay in touch with his sister and whatnot through aging at different rates. I thought was something, especially back in the day, was just really smart and well done and engaging.
Yeah. Speaker for the Dead is one of those. I can't think of another sequel that has done that.
Right.
Where they basically took. I mean, he had Ender's Game, which was. I mean, it's a revolutionary book. I mean, it's one of the top sci-fi books probably of all time.
Yeah.
Such a great theme, great characters, great story. But it was all about warfare, and there was action, and there was, all this tense
intrigue.
stuff.
There's intrigue. Yeah.
And then he does something completely different with Speaker for the
Right.
Dead.
He could have just easily picked another kid and sent him through the same meat grinder.
Exactly.
And been like, here's my sequel.
Or now Ender's a general, or now Ender's a this. Or
now Ender's having to struggle with, do I do the same thing that Graf did to me?
Yeah, whatever. And so, but he didn't do that. He turned Ender into a different. It made sense. Like, this is the kind of character he is now.
Right.
And this is the journey he's on because of this kind of conflict within himself about killing all these people, all these beings. Now he is a speaker for the dead.
Yes.
Now he tries to dignify people, and he tries to,
Bring in that redemption story.
And so, such a great story.
Yep.
And then the next one, the third one was great too. They just kind of continued on, and that was something he could continue. That was something, and I totally agree. And I think one of the best sequels of all time, if not the best sequel of all time, is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Because I can't, like, he had to do something. He didn't do something totally different like Ender's Game, right? But I mean, he stayed in the world. It was the same sort of like vibe and everything, but he went darker. Mm-hmm. And he was able to take Luke, and Han and Leia on a different sort of journey. He was able to take all these three main characters, even Darth Vader, like take them all on this totally different journey. And I think Empire Strikes Back is a better movie. I just think it's a better movie, just well made, acted, directed, put together, all of it. It's such a great movie.
So is that the one you choose to watch on May the 4th? Is that your go-to Star Wars film?
It would have been if we didn't do Endgame on Saturday. That probably is one of the ones. I would have at least done the Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I did The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Well, and I think the problem with a lot of sequels is that there is no plan for a second sequel. Like, and so when they do a sequel, they have to create something kind of out of thin air. Like, you know what I mean? Like, try to come up with something.
I would say another sequel or series. We could even, we could stretch it into, what about a series? Like, they do, there's that stigma for the sequel where they say the second movie is never going to be better than the first.
Right.
But then the third, sometimes, in a series tends to redeem the overall purpose of the sequel. But, I'm thinking of movies like Terminator. Because Terminator 1 was classic, but Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I feel like that's another one of those where it did better than the first one. But then they kept, making more, 3 and a lot of those. And yet, points it gets convoluted, and the story, obviously, is going to get confusing because there's time travel involved. And once you start going back in time, trying to kill people before they kill you, and and another one, and I know I didn't really say anything about that, but another one that does that, I feel like, is the Marvel X-Men series. Like this newer one where they do a lot of time travel stuff in that too. Which I think is another great example of a successful series. However, again, I have issues with some of those movies. Sometimes it's a love-hate relationship. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good movie, and other times I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
I didn't like First Class as much as a lot of other people did. However, Apocalypse was pretty good. I did like that one. And I'm looking forward to Dark Phoenix. But what these all have, I think that's in common with each other, is that they're expanding the story and they're giving you a chance to see these characters, and they're taking characters that you've almost kind of put hope in, and then all of a sudden they flip it on you, and they go, and now you're going, oh no, either this character is, killed off, or this character has turned, or they add in an element that takes what was established before and almost makes you nostalgic for that, but at the same time, you want to move forward with the story. You want to know what happens next. And I think that is what a sequel or a series really does that makes it successful is that it makes you go, man, you remember that first movie? Like, yeah, there were some hard things in there, but that was a good movie. Like, that was a good time. And you're like, now we're here, and it's a little darker, maybe it's a little grittier, or, oh man, we lost that character along the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we can fall in love with a series or a sequel. And then we were talking earlier about Harry Potter.
And here's where Harry Potter is a great example of doing it well. You almost have to nowadays plan, if you're going to have more than one book, you're going to have to plan the character arc over all the books.
Yeah.
Because if you take the character too far in the first book, then you've got nowhere to take that character in the second book. Right? And so what she did that was so genius, and I don't know how much she had all figured out in the beginning, but I think she had a decent idea of what she wanted to do. And the fact that she grew this character up with the readers, I mean, come on.
I think what worked in that was that she just had a basic, like she was limiting herself. She knew that each book was going to be a year in the schooling.
Right.
So it stopped her from going too far and really like, oh, let's just skip through him learning and now he's this great wizard and we can really do cool stuff. Like, you really did have to go each year along the way, and she had to stop and think. And I think that forced her to stop and think, okay, in this year of schooling, how would he progress? And what would be the obstacle he has to overcome? And then she's going to work within those confines. And I think that's what helped her also allow it to grow with the audience. So I think, yes, she had it planned out, and it was a good plan, but I think also at the same time, it was just something almost happenstance that worked.
Yeah.
That hadn't really been done before.
Now, I heard a story, and I'm trying to remember the details, but I heard a story about Elf with Will Ferrell.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we're talking about a movie that does so well.
Uh-huh.
And then people like try to force a sequel, right? Or the industry. So I'm trying to remember the amount of money, but Will Ferrell was offered an obscene amount of money to do Elf 2. Now, the story behind Elf is he wasn't the original choice for Elf.
Oh, okay.
Like, it was written for Jim Carrey like 10 years before.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was written for Jim Carrey, right? This silly, goofy...
The hot comedian character back then.
Comedian. And Will Ferrell, I think... And I like Jim Carrey, but I think Will Ferrell was able to pull off that innocence and goofiness
better than Jim Carrey
way better than Jim Carrey ever could. And so in the end, that is a classic now. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't, that's not their top one or two movies over Christmas that they watch now.
Yep.
And so they offered him an obscene amount of money to do number 2, Elf 2. And surprisingly, Will Ferrell turned it down.
Yeah.
Like, this is the same guy who made Anchorman 2. And if you've seen Anchorman 2, you regretted it.
It was strictly just to redo everything they did in the first movie,
everything.
But bigger.
Yeah. So, you see what I mean? Like Will Ferrell has made some not so great movies, right? I mean, he's made some stinkers, right? And I just think he does them because he
thinks it's funny, and
he thinks it's funny.
It's a job.
It's a job. He's going to get paid.
Yeah.
And people will watch it. It'll make money.
But he got it. He kind of understood, I think, if you do a sequel to this movie, it's going to cheapen.
It's going to ruin it.
What the first one did.
It will ruin it.
Yeah.
And another sequel that was not as good, I think, as the original, as the first one, was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Oh yeah.
Right. But the third one, The Last Crusade, is an amazing movie. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's these examples of...
Well, you know the difference, Sean Connery.
I think the difference is they took Indiana Jones, because in the first one, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, they took him on a journey. He goes back to his past. He sees Marion again.
Right.
Like, he's got to deal with some of this stuff with his past. They did it again. They didn't do that with
Temple of Doom.
The Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom got dark.
It got
too.
really dark and violent, and I mean it was fun for what it was. But then with the third one, they took him through another arc. It was a father-son. It wasn't a romance like the first one. It was a father-son connection like in the third one, which is again another universal thing. It's a universal emotion and journey, and they just did it with, whatever, the Last Crusade, right? So there's ways to do it well and ways to do it, and I really have respect for people when it happens, when they just go, no, we're not making another one. Because there have been so many movies out there where they just do, I mean, how many Police Academy movies did they do? Like, they were all junk. The first one was funny, but, they just kept getting there's a Caddyshack too, right? I mean, there's a lot of sequels that are they're just money grabs. Yep. And I think nowadays, especially with how story savvy people are, just the regular moviegoer, entertainment reader, whatever, you kind of have to have a real plan if you're going to pull it off. And I think that's why people are so disappointed with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. There doesn't seem to be a overall story they're telling. Right. It's like episodic. It doesn't seem like there's a real thread.
It's more of a retelling almost.
It's more of a retelling. Yeah. There's they throw in nostalgia and then they try to break everything. And it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to what they're trying to do. At least with, Return of the Jedi and, Empire Strikes Back, once Lucas decided, I'm going to make a trilogy. And it gave it shape, and it gave it movement, it gave it story. And he took, like I said before, Luke Skywalker not just on another journey in Empire Strikes Back, but that was a journey from Empire Strikes Back to the end of Return of the Jedi. Yeah. He knew where he was going with Luke and Leia and Han Solo. He knew where he was going with these people all the way through. And I just think you kind of have to do that with today's. I mean, I think you always pretty much had to do that, but
nowadays we're inundated with so many different stories.
Well, you used to be able to get away with TV shows where the same thing happens every episode, right? Where the Lone Ranger and Tonto get on their horses and they chase somebody down and he shoots somebody with a silver bullet, and he teaches somebody moral lesson, and you
had a formula to the episode.
But nobody can watch that anymore. That's not. They want character depth. They want movement. They want something to happen.
Really. Yeah, your second season better not be the same as the first season.
So, all right. Well, I think that's it for sequels. But we haven't talked a lot about Endgame here. No. And that's been on purpose. We don't want to give spoilers. One of my friends on Facebook today, somebody that I met at Realm Makers, he said, I don't care what your religion is. I don't care who you vote for, your politics. But if you ruin Endgame for me, I will hunt you down and kill you. And so true. That says a lot about what Marvel has done over the last 8 or 10 years. Just what they have built and the expectation. And I think with Infinity War...
22 movie buildup.
Right? I mean, just... what an amazing thing that they've done. I think they have changed, again, the landscape of entertainment forever. And it's a high standard, man. And I really hope that they knock off Avatar for the highest grossing movie ever made, because Avatar should not have that place. Yeah. That was not that good of a movie.
I've felt that for a long time, but I'm one of the few, I feel.
No, I think more and more people are waking up to the fact that it kind of was a cool thing there for a while, and the special effects were great. The 3D was amazing, all that stuff.
The story wasn't original, and anyways, we're not talking about that.
But I really hope Endgame knocks it off. I don't know why Infinity Wars didn't, but I think Infinity Wars is still behind Titanic.
Really?
I was just looking at the numbers somebody posted about it. All that to say is, we're going to do a different episode, an Interbrews episode. We haven't been doing as many this year, mainly because I've been super busy with writing projects. But I think we're going to do a separate episode where we talk about Endgame.
And it'll be full of spoilers and all the good stuff you want to talk about.
Spoilers and the Easter eggs we saw.
Yes.
And what we liked, what we didn't like, what kind of plot holes, all the stuff.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about it here.
No. But, well, we are going to say that one thing when that one time he did the thing with...
Well, Batman dies at the end.
Yeah.
And then Wonder Woman shows up, but I don't know. And then Mighty Mouse, I don't know.
Yeah, Mighty Mouse is definitely there.
So all that to say is, so be looking for that episode next week. We're going to try to get that out to you guys next week. But for now, we're going to get into your story. So you're going to read.
Yes.
The House Always Wins.
The House.
And this is by Henri Cousteau.
Yes.
Are you going to try to do the voice again?
You'll see.
Okay.
We'll get into it.
All right. Well, so we're going to get into the story now.
All right. Want to say thanks for listening to our podcast. If you are interested in learning more about writing and how to become a writer, check out our syndication page, seriouswriter.com. They have articles, resources, classes, videos, and a podcast, the Brew and Ink Podcast. Again, check out seriouswriter.com. Thanks for listening. The House Must Always Win. The Midnight Showing Flash Fiction Story. It had been a horrible week. First, there was the fool Aaron who ran off with our gambling money. Then I had to break the news to Blake that I had lost our money. To make matters worse, Aaron winds up dead at my bar. This, of course, led to being questioned as a suspect by a patron playing detective. Come to think of it, I have not seen Dr. Wolf since the night of the murder. But that was not the worst of it, no. Earlier, I was accosted by some thugs from the casino. They approached me in the crew quarters wearing expensive suits and gold jewelry. Two of them, both with slick back hair, held me up against the wall, while a third bald man pummeled me with questions, each one punctuated with a gut punch. "What do you know about Aaron Bett's death?" he accused. "I don't know what you are talking about." Ugh! I was sucking for breath before I finished my sentence. "We know you were involved, and drop the fake French act. We know it's a cover. Now, what happened to our man?" I dropped the act, figuring there was no use in keeping it up since they already knew the truth. No, I'm not technically French-Canadian. I was born in the bayous of Louisiana, where I fell in love with French food and culture. I moved to Quebec when I was 18 and integrated into the culture as much as I could. The accent is not easy to keep up 24/7. "Your man?" I asked, all pretense aside. "You mean Aaron worked for the casino?" Ugh! Another punch to the gut. "Stop playing games with us. We know you had him off after he took the money from you. The money that you and Blake illegally won from the casino." "That's not true. We won that money fair and square." Ugh! Don't interrupt. It took us a while to figure out your ploy. Once we did, the trick was getting you to pick one of our own to be your patsy. Well, that explains why he was so horrible at following my lead. He was trying to lose my money. But wait, he wasn't crew? How was he your man? Baldy took a break from punching my gut to adjust his suit cuffs. "A man's services can be bought for the right price, Mr. Cousteau, if he thinks what he's doing is a noble cause behind it. A single, middle-aged man, alone on a cruise, is someone ripe for such an opportunity." "I heard he killed himself. Probably from working with someone like, ugh! He resumed, checking my gut's reflexes with his fist. I was beginning to feel a bit woozy, lost track of what I was saying. What do these guys want from me? If I could just give them the right answer, then maybe they'd go away. Don't play dumb with us, Mr. Cousteau. We know you and your little group of gambling thieves were all there when Mr. Betts died. We know you were involved. How obvious can it be? His drink was poisoned, and you were the bartender. It's a simple equation, one that leads right back to you. Well, it's not as simple as it would seem. I didn't kill him. Ask security. They didn't find any evidence of my involvement. They searched my room. Why do you care if he's dead? You already took our money. Now, you see, that's why we're here, said the bald man. Aaron hadn't given us the money yet. Then he winds up dead at your bar, which leads us to believe you got what you wanted and then offed him. So, where is the money? Another gut punch before I could even object, followed by a right hook breaking my nose. I hadn't realized how many rings this jeweled-up casino goon was wearing until now. I tasted blood. I needed to find Dr. Wolf or Dr. Winsick. They could tell these men what happened, prove I didn't. Mr. Cousteau, are you listening? I need you to focus. I think you may have knocked him a bit senseless with that one of the other thugs said. I can prove it, I choked out. Find Dr. Wolf or Dr. Winsick. They'll tell you I didn't kill him. Blake will tell you I never got the money back. Oh, we'll be giving your accomplice a little visit and asking him a few questions too. Don't you worry. But if you don't have the money, then we have no further use for you. Boys, I think it's time our friend here cooled off with a dip in the water. They started dragging me further down the hall, towards the back of the ship. It dawned on me what was about to happen. Wait, no, I'm innocent. I never cheated to win. It was all my own skill. I just used someone to play the hand for me. You gotta believe me. It's no use. Stop kicking and screaming, said the goon on my right. You took winnings from the casino that weren't yours to take. The big bosses want to make sure you don't do it again. Now you know. The house always wins. I tried kicking free again, only to have my arms pulled further behind my back. I swear I heard one of them pop. I didn't have much time to worry about it, though, as a door opened and the distinct smell of salt water and ocean breeze filled my broken nose. I had just enough time to see my reflection in the windows of the private balcony as they hoisted me up and over the rail. No hesitation, no last words. As I fell, I wondered how far we were from the nearest land. Then I figured I'd probably never find that out. Wait, was that Dr. Wolf stealing a lifeboat off the side of the ship? As I crashed into the cold churning water, struggling to reach the surface for air, I thought, why would he be stealing a lifeboat? I didn't care, though. As I resurfaced, gasping for air, hope also surfaced that I might be saved after all. That was.
I enjoyed it. I think that was great, man.
Yeah.
So we just kind of went into this season not knowing exactly, well, not what we were doing, but we didn't know how it was going to go, right? We just thought, well, let's just kind of keep exploring these characters, do a few episodes, a couple months with this stuff, with some flash fiction.
I figured, Henry Cousteau probably wouldn't get off as easy as he would, in regards to the problems that he had in the previous story. He learned a hard and valuable lesson that the house will always win.
The house always wins, man. I fought authority, and authority always wins, right? Well,
yeah.
So I'm going to be writing next.
Yes.
That was really good. I really love the part. I love where you were kind of in the middle talking, and I was trying not to laugh while you were reading because it was really good. So that was really good. I'm going to be writing next, and we're going to generate a couple titles here for you, and it's going to be...
Do you want to tell them from what character point of view you're going to write, or do you want that to be a surprise?
I think that's going to be a surprise.
Okay, good.
I'll tell them. I'm going to try to write one from Dr. Winsek's point of view.
Yes.
Because I think it's going to be hard to do one from Dr. Wolf. I mean, that we kind of did the whole...
Wrap up with his character.
Yeah, we kind of explored all that. And it's going to be kind of hard to go back, and it's going to be hard for him to be a hero to anybody.
I put a little Easter egg in there to really kind of carry on that... What happened to Dr. Wolf? So we'll give you guys a few title to choose from again, like we did last week. And basically, whichever one wins, that is going to be the title of the story that Britt will be writing from Dr. Winsek's point of view. And if you don't remember who Dr. Winsek was, because I did mention her in my story as well, we're not going to tell you. You're going to have to go back and listen.
Go back and listen. That's right.
To the episode.
All right. So here, how many titles have we given before? Three, right?
Yeah.
So let's do 3 again. Ready? Mm-hmm. Here's the first one.
Ready.
The first title is Primed for Duty.
Primed for... that might work really well for what you're talking about.
It's kind of, there's a theme.
Yeah.
Number 2, Purple Midnight.
Purple Midnight. Purple Midnight. Purple Midnight.
And number 3 is Claw of Death.
Claw of Death.
All right, so this is going to be Dr. Winsek. She's going to be in a maybe different situation. I don't know yet. It's going to probably depend a little bit on the title. Mm-hmm. Right? So let's go over them again. Primed for Duty. It's kind of a theme.
Yes.
Little poop theme we got going here. And Purple Midnight. Now, if that has to do with poop, then you're in real trouble.
Right, yeah.
She's a doctor. Hopefully she can figure that out.
Right.
And then Claw of Death.
Yes. That makes me think of the monkey's paw.
Ooh. Yeah,
right?
Nice. All right, so be looking for our End Game Interbrews episode that we'll have coming up.
Yep.
And, just kind of be checking in. Please vote for our title.
Yeah, we got a lot of better feedback, putting it on Facebook, so we're gonna do that again. And you guys just feel free to have fun with it. And go out there and share it and let your friends and families vote and all that. And just the more people we can get involved, the more fun we can have.
That's right. So until next time.
Yeah, as always, raise that glass to inspiration.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.
So they offered him an obscene amount of money to do number 2. It's kind of a theme.
Yes.
Little poop theme we got going here.